My name is Violet Bennett. I'm 31 years old. And the moment I realized my boyfriend was lying to me, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even confront him. I smiled. He told me he was going on a guy's trip, last minute, some spontaneous weekend getaway to clear his head. When I asked where exactly, he sighed like I'd exhausted him. "Why are you being so insecure?" he said, already half annoyed. "It's just a trip." That word, insecure, hung between us like a warning label. It was the same word he'd been using more often lately, any time I asked even the smallest question. "Where are you going? Who texted you? Why do you feel so far away when you're sitting right next to me?" For weeks he'd been different, less present, less patient. His laughter felt practiced, like something borrowed. The warmth between us had thinned into something polite. The story itself didn't make sense. The friend he claimed he was traveling with hated long drives, hated planning, hated being away from home. When I casually mentioned that, just as an observation, my boyfriend's expression shifted for half a second. Just half a second. But I saw it. His eyes hardened, then softened again, like a mask snapping back into place. That was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't argue, didn't accuse, didn't beg him to stay. I went into the other room, sat on the edge of the bed, and searched for a private investigator with strong local reviews. It felt unreal, like stepping into a movie I never auditioned for. But my body knew before my heart did. Something was wrong, and pretending otherwise would cost me more than the truth ever could. The investigator's name was David. Quiet, professional, efficient. He asked for a photo, vehicle details, a timeline. I gave him everything. That Friday morning, I kissed my boyfriend goodbye like nothing had changed. Told him to have fun. Told him to drive safe. The door closed behind him, and the apartment felt lighter. Empty, yes, but peaceful. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was tiptoeing around someone else's moods. David's first message came that afternoon. A photo. My boyfriend's car parked outside an upscale hotel. Definitely not out of town. The timestamp read 3:15 p.m. An hour later, another photo arrived. This one showed him at the hotel bar, laughing, leaning close to a woman. I recognized her instantly. She was his ex-girlfriend, the one he told me never to worry about. The weird thing about betrayal is that your body reacts before your mind can name it. My stomach didn't drop like in the movies. My hands didn't shake. I didn't fling my phone across the room or collapse to my knees in some dramatic, satisfying release. I just stared at the image on my screen until my eyes burned. There he was, my boyfriend, smiling like a man with nothing to lose. His shoulders relaxed, his head tilted toward her in the kind of attention I hadn't received in weeks. And the woman beside him, Serena, his ex-girlfriend, the one who was always described as ancient history, as if time alone could disinfect a wound, the one he swore he'd outgrown, the one he claimed he only ran into once in a while and never spoke to beyond polite hellos. Yet in the photo, there was nothing polite about the way she laughed, or the way her fingers rested on his wrist like she belonged there. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't even whisper his name into the empty room like it might summon the version of him I'd fallen in love with. I locked my phone and went to the kitchen, because if I let myself spiral now, I'd lose control. And control was the only thing left that was still mine. I poured a glass of water and stared out the window at the street below. People walked dogs. Someone carried a grocery bag like nothing in the world had ever collapsed in their hands. I envied them. David texted again. "David, I'll continue surveillance. I'll send full report Sunday night." Sunday. The word should have felt far away. 2 full days of not knowing everything. But I already knew enough. My boyfriend wasn't on a guy's trip. He wasn't clearing his head. He was checking into a hotel with the woman he swore was nothing. And somehow that hurt more than if it had been a stranger. Because a stranger would have meant impulse. Serena meant intention. Sunday night arrived with the kind of quiet that feels unnatural, like a house holding its breath. I sat on the couch, laptop open, the lights off except for the faint glow of the city outside our windows. I could hear the building creak, a neighbor's muffled TV, the distant whine of traffic. My phone buzzed. An email notification. From David. Subject line, case file, 734. Impersonal. Cold. Almost clinical. Like a receipt for the end of my life. I clicked. The report was concise and brutal. Photo 1. Them checking in together at the front desk. Photo 2. Her hand sliding into his. Photo 3. Both of them by the pool. Bodies angled toward each other. The kind of closeness you don't fake. And then the one that sealed it. A crystal clear shot through the glass lobby doors. My boyfriend leaned down and Serena lifted her face and he kissed her goodnight, slow, familiar, like he'd done it 1,000 times. They disappeared toward the elevator. David had even captured the room number. He was thorough. My throat tightened, not because I wanted to cry, but because my body was trying to protect me, like if I swallowed hard enough, I could keep the truth from entering my bloodstream. I scrolled further. Hotel folio copy, 2-night stay, king suite, paid by Serena. And then text messages. A thread between my boyfriend and Serena, retrieved through David's contacts. Just fragments, but more than enough to paint the picture. One message stood out. Sent the day he left. Him. She asked questions. Serena. Say she's insecure. That always shuts her up. Him. It worked. She totally bought it. Serena. Good. Just a few more days. I reread it 3 times, like my eyes were trying to find a different meaning in the words. She totally bought it. Like I was a product. Like I was a fool. Like the love I'd given him was some cheap thing he could bargain with. Something inside me went still. Not numb. Not broken. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I made a decision. I wasn't going to give him a dramatic confrontation. I wasn't going to beg for honesty from someone who treated my trust like a joke. I wasn't going to fall apart in front of him and hand him the satisfaction of watching me bleed. No, I was going to move like a shadow. I was going to protect myself before he even realized I'd stopped believing in him. He came home that same night, right on schedule. The lock turned, the door opened. And there he was, sun-kissed, smiling, carrying a duffel bag like he'd been exactly where he claimed. He dropped it in the hallway and spread his arms. Violet, he said, like he'd missed me. He walked toward me and wrapped his arms around my shoulders, pulling me into his chest. And I let him. I inhaled. Not because I wanted to remember his scent, because I wanted to know if there was anything different. There was. A faint trace of a women's perfume, floral and expensive, clinging to his hoodie. And beneath that, a hotel soap smell, sharp and clean. He pulled back, eyes bright. You should have seen the cabin, he said. The mountains were insane. It was so relaxing. I nodded. Yeah? Yeah, and the guys were hilarious. We did hiking, played cards. I swear I feel like a new man. A new man. Maybe. Just not mine. He kept talking, telling me stories that sounded rehearsed, throwing in details like he'd memorized them on the drive home. He even mentioned his friend, the one who hated long rides, as if repetition would turn a lie into reality. I smiled at the right moments. I asked questions that sounded normal. I played my part so perfectly that even I almost forgot I was acting. He didn't notice anything, because he only saw what he wanted to see. The obedient version of me. The predictable version. The one Serena said would shut up if you called her insecure. That night, he slept easily. I lay beside him in the dark, listening to his breathing deepen, his body loosening into comfort. And I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the word he'd used on me like a weapon. Insecure. As if trust was weakness. As if loyalty was something embarrassing. As if love was a flaw to correct. I reached for my phone under the blanket, careful not to jostle the mattress. I didn't text David. I didn't call a friend. I opened my banking app. Our joint savings account sat there like a shared promise. About 10,000, mostly from me. Not because I was richer, because I was the one who planned, the one who saved, the one who thought about futures instead of weekends. My thumb hovered. For a second, I felt something close to grief. Not for him, for the woman I used to be. The woman who thought shared accounts meant shared devotion. Then I transferred my half into a new personal account I opened online in minutes. I left his half untouched. I rerouted my direct deposit through my work payroll portal. And I took screenshots of every confirmation page. Dated, timed, clean. Evidence. Not for court. For reality. Because I was done living in a story where I was the only one telling the truth. I set my phone down, turned slightly, and watched him sleep. His face looked peaceful. Like a man with no consequences. I blinked slowly, and in the silence I made another plan. Because if he wanted to treat my trust like something he could buy, then he was about to learn what it felt like when the bill finally came due. The next morning I woke up before he did. That used to be our routine. Me first, always. I liked the quiet hour before the world demanded anything from us. I'd make coffee, check emails, plan my day. He used to joke that I ran our lives like a project manager. Maybe I did. And maybe that's why dismantling it felt strangely procedural. I moved carefully, not sneaking, choosing. Every step intentional. While he showered, humming off key like a man with a clean conscience, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and opened our apartment lease. 3 years in that place. 3 years of believing we meant permanence. I scrolled until I found what I was looking for. Clause 14b. All tenants listed on this agreement are jointly and severally liable for the full rental amount. Removal of one tenant requires the remaining tenant to requalify financially or vacate the premises within 30 days. I read it twice, then a third time. His part-time income wouldn't even touch half the rent. Not without help, not without me. The realization didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel clear. The days that followed felt like living in two timelines at once. In one, I was the same girlfriend I'd always been. I made dinner. I asked about his day. I laughed when he told stories. I touched his arm at the right moments. I kissed him goodnight. Every day I packed one box. Not the obvious things at first. No clothes, no shared items. Just mine. Books I'd owned before him. Old journals. Family photos. Jewelry passed down from my grandmother. Small things that carried weight only I could feel. I rented a storage unit a few miles away. The clerk barely looked at me as he handed over the key. To him, it was just another transaction. To me, it was the beginning of an exit. The apartment changed subtly. Empty shelf space, fewer personal touches, less evidence that I'd ever belonged there. He didn't notice. He never did. The following weekend, I introduced the lie that would expose everything. I got an email from a recruiter, I said casually over dinner, from a competitor company. His fork paused midair. Oh? Yeah, it's big. I took a sip of wine, watching him over the rim of the glass. Promotion, salary bump. The position's in another city, though, about 3 hours away. I waited. He didn't smile. He didn't say congratulations. Instead, his face tightened, like I'd just told him something inconvenient. You're serious? He asked. I nodded. They want an answer soon. He leaned back, arms crossing over his chest. That's kind of a huge thing to drop on me. There it was. Not us. Me. I know it's sudden, I said calmly, but opportunities like this don't come around often. So what, you're just going to leave? He said, irritation bleeding into his voice. What about my life, my job, my friends? Still no we. Still no us. I felt something in my chest finally click into place, like the last piece of a puzzle snapping down. I'd have to take it, I said, which means we'd need to talk to the landlord about the lease. His face drained of color. What do you mean talk to him? Well, I shrugged lightly. I can't stay on a lease for an apartment I'm not living in. Silence. Heavy, loaded. You can't just expect me to handle this alone, he said finally, his voice sharp. I can't afford this place by myself. I looked at him then, really looked. The man who'd kissed another woman goodnight. The man who'd laughed about how I bought his lies. The man who was now panicking, not because he loved me, but because he needed me. I know, I said softly. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. Monday came faster than he expected. I'd already spoken to Mr. Henderson, our landlord, privately. Explained that the relationship was dissolving and I needed a clean break. He appreciated the warning. He didn't like drama. None of this was dramatic to me. It was administrative. In his small, cluttered office, Mr. Henderson listened as I explained the job offer. My boyfriend sat rigid beside me, jaw clenched, saying nothing. Mr. Henderson slid a form across the desk. Tenant release, he said. Once you sign, Violet, you'll be absolved of responsibility for the lease in 30 days. Then he turned to my boyfriend and handed him a thicker packet. You'll need to requalify financially if you want to take over the lease on your own. My boyfriend stared at the papers like they were written in another language. I can't afford this, he said again, louder this time. He looked at me, waiting for me to save him. I can't stay on a lease for a place I won't live in, I repeated. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. If you don't qualify, you'll need to vacate within 30 days. The silence was suffocating. When we left the office, neither of us spoke. The moment the apartment door closed behind us, he exploded. Accusations, shouting, tears that felt more like frustration than heartbreak. You're abandoning me, he yelled. You're selfish, you're impulsive. How could you do this to me? He never asked me to stay. He never asked why. He never apologized. I let him exhaust himself. And when he finally stopped, chest heaving, I said the words I'd already prepared. I'm staying with my sister for a few weeks. My bag's in the car. I walked out without looking back. Because some endings don't need a final glance. They just need distance. The first text came less than an hour after I left. You owe me for half the rent. I stared at the screen from the passenger seat of my car, parked 2 blocks away from my sister's place. My bag was still unopened. My hands were steady. I replied with a screenshot of the signed tenant release form. Per Mr. Henderson, my obligation ends in 30 days. No explanation, no emotion. Just fact. The response was immediate. A string of curses, accusations, words hurled like broken glass. I didn't answer. I turned my phone face down and went inside. The call started the next morning. Not from him, from his parents. They'd always liked me, trusted me. I was the grounded one, the one who planned ahead, who showed up on time, who remembered birthdays and asked about their health. I knew exactly what story he'd fed them. That I'd blindsided him, that I'd chosen a job over a relationship, that I'd abandoned him without warning. His mother's voice trembled through the phone. Violet, how could you do this to him? He's a mess. You've been together for years. You can't just throw that away. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt, didn't defend myself, didn't correct her version of events. Because arguing would have been pointless. When she finally paused, waiting for my response, I said calmly, I understand why you're upset. I think it would be best if we talked in person. There was a beat of hesitation, then relief. Yes, she said quickly. Dinner. Come over Wednesday. We can work this out. Work this out. I agreed. And when I hung up, I didn't feel dread. I felt ready. The next 2 days were preparation, not revenge. Preparation. I printed everything. The photos, enlarged, clear, undeniable. The hotel folio showing a 2-night stay in a king suite. The text messages, neatly organized and highlighted. I slid them all into a manila folder and placed it in my briefcase. I didn't rehearse what I'd say. I didn't need to. The truth didn't require performance. Wednesday night, I walked into his parents' house like someone entering a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. He was there, sitting stiffly on the couch. He looked tired, smaller somehow. His eyes flicked to the briefcase in my hand, then away. His father shook my hand politely, but without warmth. His mother looked at me like she was holding back tears. They sat me down. The ambush began immediately. We think you're making a terrible mistake, his father said. This sudden move, it's not fair to him. My boyfriend lowered his head, playing his part. I thought we were going to get married, he said quietly. I don't understand how you could just leave. I listened. I let them finish. I let the room fill with their version of me, the cold girlfriend, the heartless woman who chose ambition over loyalty. When the silence finally settled, I spoke. Are you finished? They blinked, surprised. His father nodded slowly. I didn't say another word. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out the folder, and slid it across the coffee table. I think you should look at this. His father opened it. The first photo drained the color from his face. The second tightened his jaw. By the third, his breathing had changed, shorter, heavier. His mother leaned in, one hand flying to her mouth as she took in the images, the hotel receipt, the highlighted texts. My boyfriend went still. What is that? He demanded, though his voice lacked conviction. That, I said evenly, is from the trip I was told to stop being insecure about. Silence exploded into something sharp and dangerous. His father looked at the text messages, then at his son. Who is Serena? He asked, voice low. My boyfriend stammered. She's just a friend. From before. His father tapped the photo of them kissing. That doesn't look like a friend. The disappointment in his mother's eyes hurt more than any accusation ever could. You lied, she whispered. To us, to her, to everyone. What followed wasn't my fight. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Years of parenting collided with the reality of the man they'd raised. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap. When the chaos peaked, I stood. I think I should go, I said. His mother looked up at me, tears finally falling. Violet, I'm so sorry. I nodded once. So am I. And I walked out. I didn't hear from him for 2 days after that dinner. Not a text, not a call, not even a half-hearted attempt to explain. But I heard everything else. His father called me the next morning. I owe you an apology, he said. His voice sounded older than it had a week ago. We believed the wrong person. I let him speak. He told me they wouldn't be co-signing anything for him, wouldn't be covering rent, wouldn't be stepping in to fix what he'd broken. He made his choices, his father said quietly. Now he can live with them. Maybe Serena can help him. The irony sat heavy in my chest. I thanked him for the call. And when I hung up, I felt something loosen inside me. Not triumph, not joy, relief. The shift among our friends came next. At first, the messages were ugly. Accusations, confusion. People who only knew his version of events reaching out with righteous anger. One text called me heartless. Another said I'd ruined his life. Someone even suggested I owed him for leaving him stuck with the apartment. I ignored all of it until Jenna called. She and her husband were the closest thing we had to mutual anchors. If anyone deserved the truth, it was her. I don't get it, Jenna said carefully. Leaving him like that? It just feels cruel. I didn't argue. Instead, I asked one question. Did he tell you where he was 2 weekends ago? Yes, she said. A guy's trip. Call Serena, I said. Ask her how it was. There was a long pause on the line. I don't want to be in the middle of this, Jenna said. I know, I replied. Neither did I. An hour later, my phone rang again. Oh my God, Jenna whispered. Violet, I had no idea. I forwarded her the same folder I'd given his parents. Digitized this time. Photos, receipts, messages. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. It spreads. By the end of the week, the tone of the messages changed. The angry ones stopped. The apologies started. People who doubted me now sounded embarrassed, humbled, quiet. The narrative had shifted. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the man who lied, cheated, and then tried to hide behind his parents and friends when it fell apart. The 30 days passed faster than I expected. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. It was quieter, smaller, mine. No shared closets, no compromises over wall art, no tension humming under every conversation. On the last day of the month, I received an email from Mr. Henderson. Final statement attached. He'd deducted $500 from the security deposit, $300 for junk removal, $200 for deep cleaning. A note at the bottom read, apartment left in a state of disarray. Significant personal effects abandoned. I smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. He'd never cleaned up after himself. The remaining deposit was mailed to me, since I was the primary contact. I transferred his half to him without comment. Fairness mattered to me, even now. Through Jenna, I heard the rest. He moved in with Serena. Hotel weekends turned into shared bills and expectations. Romance dulled under responsibility. His parents kept their distance. The bridges he'd burned didn't rebuild themselves. That night, sitting on my new couch, surrounded by unpacked boxes and quiet, I poured myself a glass of wine. The city lights glowed outside my window. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't need to read the message to know who it was from. I blocked it. No reply. No final word. No closure conversation. Because closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you take. The quiet didn't arrive all at once. It came in layers. The first layer was physical. No footsteps behind me in the hallway, no keys rattling at odd hours, no tension clinging to the air like humidity. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator in my new apartment and the distant sounds of the city doing what it always did, with or without me. The second layer was emotional. I stopped bracing myself. I stopped anticipating mood shifts, defensive comments, the subtle blame disguised as jokes. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head before they happened. I slept through the night, every night. That alone told me I'd done the right thing. A week later, I ran into Serena's name again, this time through someone else. Jenna mentioned it casually over coffee. They're already fighting, she said, stirring her cup. Money, chores, expectations. Turns out living together isn't a vacation. I nodded. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was confirmation. He hadn't chosen her because she was special. He'd chosen her because she was available, and because he thought I'd always be there as a backup. That illusion was gone. I finished unpacking the last box one Friday night. It was filled with old photos, ticket stubs, notes I'd written to myself years ago. A record of who I'd been before my life revolved around accommodating someone else's comfort. I placed them in a drawer instead of on display. Some memories are meant to be acknowledged, not revisited. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window, watching headlights blur into lines of light below. The city felt open again. Possibility instead of obligation. My phone buzzed. Another new number. This time, I let the notification sit there for a moment. Not because I was tempted. Because I was curious about how little it stirred in me. No spike of anxiety, no anger, no urge to explain. Just nothing. I blocked the number. And in that small, quiet action, I felt the final thread snap. People talk about revenge like it has to be loud. Public, cruel, cinematic. But the most effective ending isn't destruction. It's absence. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't chase closure from someone who broke the rules first. I walked away with my dignity intact, my future unburdened, and my silence preserved. And that silence? It was the loudest thing I'd ever chosen.